Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravan Pracharini Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarini Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Shri Shri Radha Vrindavan Chandra ki jai. Shri Shri Nitai Gauranga ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Welcome to the Sunday morning session on the science of self-realization. We've been reading from this book and we have been discussing very wonderful spiritual topics. Today, we are bringing to you a very wonderful topic on the subject matter of Bhagavad Gita. So the title of this today's session is called the Immortal Nectar of the Bhagavad Gita. Very wonderful topic. So this topic is basically, as we will discuss today, is the wonderful meditation which Shankaracharya, Sripad Shankaracharya has done on the Bhagavad Gita. So today we will be covering one part of it, and the next session will complete the whole understanding. So Sripad Shankaracharya is one of our prominent acharyas, Sanatana Dharma. He appeared a few centuries ago to preach what is known as impersonalism. Sripad Shankaracharya was the incarnation of Lord Shiva himself. So impersonalism basically means, which is also known as Mayavada, basically means that ultimately absolute truth is formless. Absolute truth has no personal features. Absolute truth is finally light. There is a specific word in the Vedic scriptures known as Brahma Jyoti. This Brahma Jyoti is the effulgence or the light which is spread all over the spiritual universe. So the impersonalists or the Mayavadis, they interpret the Vedic literatures in a way that finally the personality aspects what we have in this material world is just a temporary phenomena, and temporary phenomena, it is a false phenomena. They say Brahma Satya Jagan Mithya. It's a very important statement they make. Brahma Satya means the impersonal Brahman. All of us are actually spirit souls. We are all particles of light. And we are actually belonging to that impersonal Brahman. Brahman, that is Satya, that is truth. And this world is impersonal. This world is Mithya. Mithya means false. So what is the misunderstanding or rather the fallacy of this particular theory is that Brahman also is Satya. Nirakara Brahman. Brahma Jyoti is also Satya. And this world also is Satya. It is not unreal or it is false. It's like all of us are having a virtual session now. So it is not unreal. It's all fact. The point here, which Bhagavatam on the Vedic scriptures tell us, is that the world we create in the mind of each of us is what is mithya, is false. If you see things in the material world as it is, I'm not this body, I got this body with a particular reason, particular purpose, and this world is creation of Lord Krishna, and it has a purpose, it has a reason, it has a plan. So like this, if you start analyzing everything from the Vedic perspective, then we understand that this world is having a very specific plan with regard to each of us. So it is not mithya, it is false, it's not false, it is actually a fact. So the Mayavadis conclude in a way, or rather interpret the Vedic scriptures in a way that finally everything is formless, and it is without personal features, and it is doesn't have any aspect, because they have got a experience of the material world with regard to our present existence of a body going through a lot of miseries. In fact, in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna mentions dukkhalayam ashashvatam, means this material world is a world full of miseries and it is temporary. So this material world's experience, they think because we have form, we have to experience all these things. So they conclude that if we don't have a form, then there is no misery, there is no this temporary aspect. We'll be eternally formless. So they try to bring in the concept of formlessness and eternality with regard to the spiritual aspects. Eternality is okay, but formlessness is something which even Bhagavad Gita does not say. We are actually living entities having personal features. It's a very important revelation which Bhagavad Gita gives from the very beginning. Lord Krishna mentions. So Lord Krishna says that to Arjuna, that Arjuna, you, myself, and all the different kings on this battlefield are all persons in the past. We are persons now and will continue to be persons in the future also, which means the individual personality is stressed in Bhagavad Gita from the very beginning. And individual personality is eternal aspect. We don't lose our personality at all. So why I'm giving this background to you is because the Mayavadis have brought about a big type of a understanding like this to the entire world, finally telling everything is without, God is formless, God has no personal features, and finally all of us will become formless. This is an absurd theory. It's not a factual understanding. It's just it's a speculation. It's called mental speculation. So this particular theory was propounded by Shankaracharya. You may ask, why did Shankaracharya, who is Lord Shiva himself, did this? So the scriptures say that this was done specifically to mislead the atheists. The reason why it was done, because the atheists were not even accepting this. There was one time in the history wherein Buddhism became very prominent. Buddhism means they reject Vedas. So Lord's plan was that he has to bring the Vedas in the mainstream of people's life, because Vedas give directions to people how to connect their life and how to understand, how to get the perfection of life. So that was required. Then Krishna had to send Lord Shiva in the form of Shankaracharya to preach and bring in Vedic literatures and to mislead the atheists and to convince them that yes, Vedic literatures are important. But again, at that point of time, the requirement was that just Vedas was introduced, and Vedas was interpreted in a way that they are finally telling you we are formless. We don't have any personal features. So with this background, let us begin our session. This particular topic today is called the immortal nectar of the Bhagavad Gita. So what is that? Shankaracharya, who is Acharya in the impersonal school, what does he want to say? So all these discussions we are having by the inspiration of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, who has so mercifully given us these teachings for our liberation. Let us offer our gratitude towards Prabhupada for these wonderful teachings. So through the centuries, India's greatest philosophers and spiritualists have praised the Bhagavad Gita as the distilled essence of the eternal Vedic wisdom. In his meditations on the Bhagavad Gita, versified here, the renowned 6th century philosopher Sripad Shankaracharya glorifies the Gita and its divine author Sri Krishna. Although universally celebrated as an impersonalist, here Sripad Shankaracharya reveals his devotion to the original personal form of God, Lord Sri Krishna, and Prabhupada elucidates. Basically, these verses, which we're going to discuss with their meaning, which Shankaracharya glorified Gita, is called Gita Dhyana. In whole Bhagavad Gita, the personal aspect of Krishna is what being stressed. Krishna never says, ultimately I'm impersonal. No. He is speaking personally. So God has many features. One of his features is his impersonal energy coming out from his body. Impersonal effulgence coming out of his body. So it is mentioned in the scriptures that God has his personal existence, his personal, stay in the spiritual worlds. That form is called Bhagavan form, the personal form. And God also is all pervading through his expansion as super soul. Right? So this all pervasive aspect of God is known as super soul or Paramatma. And God also has his effulgence coming out from his body. That is called Nirakara Brahman. So the impersonalists, they just understand that the light, effulgence, impersonal Brahman is the ultimate. But impersonal Brahman is only one of the features of Supreme Lord Krishna. This is the point. So actually, Lord Shiva, who appeared as Shankaracharya, is a great devotee of Lord Krishna. It is said in the Bhagavata that Shiva is the greatest devotee of Lord Vishnu. Right? Vaishnavaram yatha Shambhu. Shambhu is a great Vaishnava. Vaishnava means anybody worshipping Lord Vishnu. So the greatest Vaishnava is Lord Shiva. So then why did Lord Shiva take this up? Because it was ordered by Lord Krishna for a particular reason, particular purpose. But he was a devotee, heart of heart. Right? So he is glorifying Bhagavad Gita as his meditation, dhyana. And how nicely, how wonderfully he meditates is such an important revelation which is given by Prabhupada to us. We should also meditate on Bhagavad Gita in this way. Because Bhagavad Gita, which is having 700 verses, 18 chapters, such a wonderful presentation by Lord Krishna himself. So what is the greatness of Bhagavad Gita? What is the wonderful aspects of Bhagavad Gita is what is going to understand in this session and the next session also. So let's get into details. So Prabhupada is giving the explanation for whatever Shankaracharya has written as Gita Dhyana. He has written around 9 verses as Gita Dhyana. So Prabhupada explains. So the first sloka, the first dhyana is like this. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gatitham Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamrita Varshini Bhagavati Ashta Dasha Adhyayini Amba Tvam Muni Tvam Anu Sandadhami Bhagavad Gita Bhavadve nectar of the wisdom of the Absolute. You see, Shankaracharya is writing that Bhagavad Gita is having 18 chapters, and through this, Bhagavad Gita is showering immortal nectar, Amruta Varshini. And what it is showering nectar? Wisdom of the Absolute, knowledge of the Absolute, complete understanding of the Absolute. Oh, blessed Gita, by thee, Lord Krishna himself enlightened Arjuna. Afterward, the ancient sage Vyasa included thee in the Mahabharata. Right? In fact, Mahabharata was written, the historical incidents were compiled after the incident happened by Vyasadeva. And Vyasadeva added this portion of Bhagavad Gita, or the Lord speaking on the battlefield, as part of the Mahabharata. You'll understand all these things. Further, in this first verse, Sripad Shankaracharya is telling, O loving mother, destroyer of man's rebirth into the darkness of this mortal world, upon thee I meditate. Basically, Bhagavad Gita is that wonderful exposition from Lord Krishna. It's being addressed here as mother. The knowledge is always referred to as mother, right? Feminine. So knowledge is one of the potencies of Krishna, energy of Krishna. This wonderful exposition of Krishna is the potency of Krishna. So this wonderful exposition of Bhagavad Gita is actually going to destroy man's rebirth. The samsara chakra, bhavasagara. We are going on rotating in the cycle of birth and death. That we are going to be delivered from, and coming out of this darkness of this material world. Right? So we have to meditate on this Bhagavad Gita. In the next verse, second verse, Sripad Shankaracharya says, Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pullara Vindaya Ta Patra Netra Yenatvaya Bharata Taila Purnam Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha. Again, glorifying Gita in a very nice way. He says, salutations to these, O Vyasa, salutations to thee, O Vyasa, thou art of mighty intellect, and thine eyes are large as the petals of the full-blown lotus. It was thou who brightened this lamp of wisdom, filling it with the oil of the Mahabharata. But again, in a different way, Shankaracharya is telling that Lord Krishna, who is having lotus petal, eyes are like lotus petals, fully blown lotus. Fullara Vinda Vandaya Atapatra Netra. Right? So, and Bhagavad Gita is like lightning. It's like the oil in the whole wonderful Mahabharata. It's fueling. The lamp of wisdom it is brightened the lamp of wisdom in the Mahabharata by Bhagavad Gita being present in Mahabharata. Right? So Prabhupada very nicely comments on these two verses. He says, Sripad Shankaracharya was an impersonalist from the materialistic point of view. For ordinary people, he was an impersonalist. I explained what is impersonalist. Impersonalism basically means that ultimately absolute truth or God is nirakara, formless. He has no personality. That's what it means. So from the outside point of view, Shankaracharya was an impersonalist. But he never denied the spiritual form known as Satchidananda Vigraha, or the eternal, all blissful form of knowledge that existed before the material creation. It's a very wonderful point Prabhupada is making here. So, Lord Krishna's personality has been nicely glorified in the scriptures as being Satchidananda Vigraha, means a form which is eternal, eternally existing, full of knowledge, and it is full of bliss. It's called Sat Chit Ananda. And we as living entities are part and parcel of this Satchidananda. So we also have the same quality of Satchidananda. It's like a big ocean, vast ocean, and a drop of water in the ocean. Both have the same chemical composition. Right? So, but the quantity is different. The drop of water is only a small, minuscule quantity, whereas ocean is a huge body of water. Likewise, Krishna is that wonderful personality. He is a person, he's not impersonal at the ultimate end. He is a personality who is ocean of Satchidananda. Satchidananda means eternally existing, full of knowledge and full of bliss. We are also actually that small particles. We also have the same quality, like a particle of gold and gold mine. Right? Krishna is that personality we have to understand. And he can take any form, any shape, any way he can appear. That is his prerogative. So very nicely Prabhupada explains here that Krishna is having a spiritual personality. This Shankaracharya never denied. Rather, he also confirms in his teachings, Shankaracharya confirms that Krishna has a spiritual form. He has a spiritual existence. When he spoke of the Supreme Brahman as impersonal, he meant that the Lord's Sachidananda form was not to be confused with a material conception of personality. Very important point Prabhupada is making. Generally, when the Vedic scriptures say God is impersonal or God has no senses, it means that God has no material senses like us. God has no material form like us, but he has a... So, in a different way, Shankaracharya has defined that God has no personal form like material form, like we have flesh, bone, all these things, muscles. His form is Sachidananda. His whole existence, his personality is different. Material nature, the material world, in this material world, we have got a body which is having just skin deep. You go below the skin, you will see all obnoxious things. Blood, mucus, urine, stool, right? Bones. Whereas spiritual form is not like that. Spiritual form is completely different. So just to make an understanding that Krishna's form is not material, it is spiritual. Shankaracharya has mentioned that it is actually, Brahman is impersonal. Nirakara basically means not akara of this material world, because our experience only has akara of the material world. Whereas spiritual existence is not like this. Spiritual existence is completely having antimatter existence. That's the point. So when Shankaracharya ji is telling that Lord is Supreme Brahman, he meant that the Lord Sachidananda form was not to be confused with the material conception of personality. In the very beginning of his commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, he maintains that Narayana, the Supreme Lord, is transcendental to the material creation. Just see, this is what Shankaracharya says. He says, Narayana para avyaktat, which means Narayana is not part of this material world. He is in the spiritual realm. And when he descends from spiritual realm to material world, that is called avatara or incarnation. Right? And he descends in the self-same spiritual form in the material world. And he looks like one of us, but he is not having the same form like ours, like what we have, material form. His form is completely spiritual. It's a very important understanding which we are supposed to have. The Lord existed before the creation of the transcendental personality. The Lord existed before the creation of the transcendental personality, and he has nothing to do with material personality. Right? So Lord is always transcendental, spiritual. He has nothing to do with this material world. Very important revelation, because it is what Bhagavad Gita Krishna repeatedly says. I am not influenced by the material nature's laws. He is beyond that. Even when he appears in a form, particular form of Krishna or any incarnation, he is not bound by any material laws. He may act and behave like any other person for his pastimes, but he is not like us. He is always transcendental. That's the point. So any incarnation of the Lord are always transcendental. He's not like we material mortal beings, as presently are guided by or conditioned by many laws, are governed by many laws. Lord Krishna is the same supreme personality, and he has no connection with the material body. It's a very important revelation again. Right? He is the transcendental personality. Right? He is spiritual personality. So it's called Sachidananda Vigraha. He has no connection with the material body. He descends in his spiritual eternal form, but foolish people mistake his body to be like ours. This is what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Avajananti ma mudha manushim tanu mashrita. When Krishna descends in the material world, foolish people think that, oh, he's also like one of us. Generally, we hear in our normal social interactions, when a child is born, a male child is born, oh, Krishna is born. Actually, it is wrong, not correct. Because the impersonalist understanding that everybody has become God is what is right now prevalent in the whole society. Impersonalists, they say ultimately God has no form and all of us are God right now. There's one more wrong understanding they have propagated or propounded, preached. So this is a very wrong type of a conception which people are carrying in their mind. All of us are God. We are mini gods. So this God again has so many problems, but we are also God. Like this, people go on. So here, very nicely, Prabhupada is explaining to us with regard to how when foolish people, they bring Krishna's personality or Krishna's understanding to their level. The mistake Krishna is having a material body like ours. Shankara's preaching of impersonalism is especially meant for teaching foolish persons who consider Krishna to be an ordinary man composed of matter. So, as in the beginning of this session, I told you, Shankaracharya was trying to bring back the atheists to the fold of Vedic culture. That was his whole purpose. So his impersonal way of preaching was to somehow make these foolish atheists to consider that Vedic literatures are important. So in that way, he preached the impersonalism. So in that way, while talking like that, he had to, preach in a way that even when God comes, he accepts, or he's under the laws of material nature, or he accepts the body like us. That is what Shankaracharya preached. So if that is the case, if a person like you and me starts speaking about Bhagavad Gita, nobody would have taken any interest. No one would care to read the Gita if it had been spoken by a material man. Scriptures point out, between any personality who is a mortal being and a spiritual personality, there's a big difference. Any mortal person has 4 defects. He may be a big scientist, he may be a big philosopher, whatever it is. He has 4 defects. What are they? He commits mistakes. He is illusioned. He has imperfect senses. And he has cheating propensity. I'll not get into details of this. These are the 4 imperfections we have. To commit mistakes, to be illusioned, imperfect senses, and cheating propensity. With these imperfections, if we tell ourselves as somebody who is great, that is wrong. Whereas Lord Krishna and his representatives are beyond these imperfections. So whatever knowledge they give us is always perfect. Right? So they are beyond these imperfections or so many fallacies which generally conditioned soul has. So with regard to mortal beings propounding any theory or philosophy which is not the knowledge which Krishna has given, this is not going to stand any longer. So Krishna's existence, Krishna's personality is that he's perfect and complete personality. Right? Purna is called. So he's not like a material person speaking some knowledge. Now he speaks something, again he changes, again he corrects his version. No. Whatever Krishna has spoken is perfect and complete. That's the point. And certainly, Vyasadeva would not have bothered to incorporate it into the history of Mahabharata. It was not such a perfect understanding which Krishna himself has given, then Vyasadeva would not have even considered to put it in the Mahabharata. Right? According to the above verses, which just now we read, the 2 verses of as Dhyana of Shankaracharya, the Mahabharata is history of the ancient world, and Vyasadeva is the writer of this great epic. What is Mahabharata? Mahabharata is the history of Greater India, Mahabharat. Right? Earlier, this whole Earth planet was called Bharata Varsha. And the history of what has happened in this Bharata Varsha is recorded by Vyasadeva, the author, as Mahabharata. And what is there in Mahabharata actually? Mahabharata is called the 5th Veda. Why? Because it is giving you all the essence of the Vedic literatures in a historical presentation, historical narration. Understanding Vedas in the present day society in Kali Yuga is not easy, because to understand Vedas you have to know Sanskrit, You have to go through sort of training and a lot of study has to be done. So seeing the situation of people in Kali Yuga, Vyasadeva, he started explaining the principles of Vedic literatures in a very simplified way, in historical narration, what is known as Mahabharata, for our benefit. And Mahabharata, the whole narration of Mahabharata, which is actually historical incident which has happened, has all the principles of Vedic literatures. And in that Mahabharata, there is Bhagavad Gita, which is the essence of all the Vedic literatures. Just see, such a wonderful compilation. And Vyasadeva is actually incarnation of Krishna, literary incarnation of Krishna, who just came to give this knowledge to us. How merciful Krishna is. We can't read Vedas, we can't read so many Vedic scriptures. So Krishna himself came in his incarnation as Vyasadeva and gave us Mahabharata. It's known as fifth Veda. And in Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita is incorporated so that we understand the essence of all Vedic literatures in a very, very concise way. Just 700 verses Krishna has spoken. Himself, Krishna has spoken and given us this knowledge. Such a wonderful mercy of Lord Krishna himself. So that's what Shankaracharya is glorifying about Bhagavad Gita, that Lord Krishna himself has spoken this, and his incarnation Vyasadeva has incorporated this in Mahabharata. The Bhagavad Gita, in one sense, is identical with Krishna because Krishna is the absolute personality of Godhead. There is no difference between Krishna and his words. This is the explanation of what is known as absoluteness. There's a nice statement by Lord Brahma while offering prayers to Krishna. He says, every part of your body is as good as any other part because they are equally potent. The meaning of the statement is, it's like from our eyes we can only see, whereas our hands cannot see. It can touch, it can lift something, right? So like this, we have limitation with our senses, what we have with regard to a specific function. With regard to Krishna, it is said, Angani yasya sakalendriya. All his senses can function in any way it requires. Just like we can eat only through our mouth. Krishna, when you offer food to him, Bhoga, he is seeing and eating. Just see. So that is how Krishna is, all powerful. It's called omnipotent. He can see and eat the food. In one context, Prabhupada says, don't think Krishna is not seeing. If you have a Krishna photo in your room, whatever nonsense you are doing, he is watching. Because Krishna is present in every form, every shape, in different ways. Right? That is the point. So Krishna is omnipotent, omniscient. That is Krishna's position. So Krishna and his words sound. Krishna is absolute, which means as good as Krishna. They are non-different. When we chant Hare Krishna mantra, we are associating with Krishna. Right? Because it is Krishna himself. Krishna's sound, Krishna's form, Krishna's Leela. So Krishna's Bhagavad Gita is what? Krishna's Bhagavad Gita is Krishna's own words. So it is as good as Krishna. It is absolute. That's the point. Absolute meaning anything about Krishna, Krishna's form, Krishna's shape, Krishna's sound, anything is as good as Krishna. That is the point. So it is called absoluteness. So Krishna is always present in this way to accept our services. Therefore, the Bhagavad Gita is as worshipable as Lord Krishna himself, both being absolute. Because Krishna's words they are. Just see how wonderfully Shankaracharya is writing that just like Krishna is worshipable, his Bhagavad Gita, because it is from Krishna, it is worshipable like that. Because both are absolute. One who hears the Bhagavad Gita as is, actually hears the words directly from the lotus lips of the Lord. So when you hear Bhagavad Gita from the pure devotees, like Prabhupada, who is coming in the parampara, we understood about parampara in the previous sessions. Prabhupada explains how the parampara begins from Krishna himself. The lineage begins from Krishna himself. So from that particular parampara, you hear Bhagavad Gita as is, that it is as good as hearing from Krishna. And hearing from Krishna means it is absolute. But unfortunate persons say that the Gita is too antiquated for the modern man who wants to find out God by speculation or meditation. This is one more wrong theory going on in the present day context. Or it is very old, outdated. Bhagavad Gita is outdated. Nothing is outdated. Prabhupada says, the sun is rising now every day in the morning and again setting in the evening. This is going on since millions of years. Nothing has changed. So Bhagavad Gita is propounding, or rather Krishna is telling us the eternal principles of life. Right? When you get a material body, we go through cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. The eternal principle which is going on millions of years ago, now also it is going on. So what is changed? Nothing is changed. So in the modern context, everybody wants to do experimenting, researching, and trying to figure out some things. This is called ascending process, which means I will figure out the truth myself. I will do some, some type of a jugglery of things, and I will find out what is the actual truth in my life. This is what is going on in present day context. The truth is already given so nicely in the Bhagavad Gita. What is this life? What is the purpose? What is that you're supposed to be doing in this life? Why are you here? What is this world around you? Who is God? All is very clearly explained by Krishna himself in the Bhagavad Gita. And we are trying to speculate or meditate on something which is impersonal. That is unfortunate situation right now. So Prabhupada is very nicely telling, modern man has this tendency to understand things or even understand God by speculation or meditation, which is actually improper. We'll go to the next verse, third verse. Very nicely, Shankaracharya says in his dhyana, Prapanna parijataya totra vetrai kapanaye jnana mudraya krishnaya gitamvrta duhe namaha. The meaning of this is, I salute thee, O Krishna, O thou who art the refuge of ocean-born Lakshmi, and all who take refuge at thy feet, thy lotus feet. Thou art indeed the wish-fulfilling tree for thy devotee. This is English from the British time. So here basically Shankaracharya is offering respects to Lord Krishna. Like Krishna is also known as Madhava. Madhava means husband of goddess of fortune, Lakshmi. And Lakshmi's birth, as per scriptures, is that she was born from ocean. Ocean means, there's an instance in the scriptures mentioned that there was a churning of ocean when the Devatas and Asuras, demons and the demigods, they had a fight. So finally it was settled that we'll churn the ocean with the Mandara mountain as a churning rod and Lord Krishna's incarnation, Kurma, as the pivot below. Right? So during the churning, many things came out. Basically, they were churning for nectar. So in the course of churning, even Lakshmi was born. Right? That is how the scriptures mention as birth of Lakshmi happened. So this is what Shankaracharya is saying. See how nicely everything is being nicely presented by Shankaracharya for our understanding. I salute that Madhava, who is the husband of the goddess of fortune, Krishna, and I want to take shelter of his lotus feet. Because Krishna, take shelter means he is like a kalpa vriksha. He can fulfill all your desires. Thy one hand holds a staff for driving cows, and thy other hand is raised, the thumb touching the tip of thy forefinger, indicating divine knowledge. Salutations to thee, O Supreme Lord, for thou art the milker of the ambrosia of the Gita. So again, he's glorifying Krishna in the way that he is known as the Gopala or Govinda, caretaker of the cows. And one hand he is rising like this and trying to preach to all of us about the Bhagavad Gita. Right? Like this, he's trying to, it's that Jnana Mudra it is called. He's preaching Bhagavad Gita to all of us. So let's move forward. So Prabhupada explains, Sripad Shankaracharya explicitly says, you fools just worship Govinda and that Bhagavad Gita spoken by Narayana himself. You see, one of the important statements Shankaracharya made towards the end of his life is that Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda, Mudhamate, which means Mudha, Murkas, all the fools, just worship Govinda. Samprapte sannihite kale nahi duskrum karane. He said, when death comes, all your grammar and word jugglery will not help you. Oh, this word means that, that word means this. Nothing is going to help you. Always do bhajana of Govinda. This is what Brahma also says. Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So worship Govinda is what Krishna also says. Man Mana Bhava Mad Bhakto Madhyaji. So in fact, Shankaracharya, being a great devotee of Lord Krishna, he's telling finally that you worship Krishna only. Bhajana of Krishna only, you should do nothing else. So explicitly Shankaracharya says, just worship Govinda. That Bhagavad Gita was spoken by Krishna himself, Narayana himself. Yet foolish people still conduct their research work to find out Narayana. Consequently, they are wretched and they waste their time for nothing. Right? We discussed on this point. So God is presenting himself. Krishna is presenting himself. Narayana is presenting himself about what is the truth. And foolish people want to search out where is God by their research, by speculation, all these things. Narayana is never wretched nor daridra. Rather, he is worshipped with the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, as well as by all living entities. There's one more wrong theory which the Mayavadis impersonalists have propagated. They say that we are all Narayana, but we are Daridra Narayana. Daridra Narayana means poor Narayana. Daridra means beggar, no money. So Narayana is never a beggar. Narayana is Lakshmi Pati. Not only Lakshmi, one Lakshmi is serving, millions of Lakshmis are waiting to serve him. And Lakshmi means she is the goddess of fortune. She is the controller of all wealth. So that goddess is waiting to serve Krishna with great respect. So that's why he's called Lakshmi Pati or Narayana. And we are penniless and we don't have any resources at our disposal. We can never be compared to Narayana. We are all small, insignificant entities. So comparing ourselves to be Daridra Narayana, they say, oh, this patient is lying down, we have to serve him. The service is one different aspect, but calling that patient as Rogi Narayana, that is wrong. Right? Like this, they go on with everybody has different, they're all Narayana only. They're not Narayana, they're part of Narayana. Is one more wrong understanding which is prevailing from the impersonal type of understanding that everybody is God. Everybody is part and parcel of God. And they're all going through different material imprisonment by their own karma. That's what we have to understand in a proper way. So very nicely Prabhupada explains this aspect that Narayana is never wretched or daridra. Rather, he is worshipped with the goddess of fortune as well as by all living entities. Shankara declared himself to be Brahman, but he admits Narayana or Krishna to be the supreme personality who is beyond the material creation. Right? Shankaracharya, we are all Brahman, spirit soul, but he didn't reveal that as Brahman, what is our duty, what is our function. This was revealed by Krishna himself, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He said, Jivera Swarupa Nitya Krishna Dasa. Right? This is what later on Krishna himself came and revealed this wonderful philosophies, understandings. So Shankaracharya offers his respects to Krishna as the supreme Brahman or Parabrahman because he, Krishna, is worshipable by everyone. Just see, his prayers are offering these wonderful things, wonderful aspects. Only the fools and enemies of Krishna who cannot understand what the Bhagavad Gita is, though they make commentaries on it, say, foolish people say, what they say, it is not personal, Krishna, to whom we have to surrender ourselves utterly, but the unborn, beginningless, eternal, who speaks through Krishna. What has happened in present-day society is that There are many scholars, politicians, thinkers, philosophers who are interpreting Bhagavad Gita in their own way. Prabhupada often quoted that one great politician of our nation who held a very high position in the country. He always commented in a way that when Bhagavad Gita we read, we should understand that it is not Krishna the person, because according to Mayavadis, impersonalists, that person is actually like us. They compare any incarnation of Krishna to be like a human being. Whereas this in that way they start commenting that it is not from that person Krishna, it is something within Krishna, that personality. That is speaking, Brahman is speaking. Very wrong interpretation. Right? With regard to Krishna, inside, outside is same, because it is all spiritual. There is no difference between his mind, body, and senses and his personality. In our case, there is a difference. I, as a person who is within us, within this body, when I leave this body is useless. Right? Whereas with Krishna, his complete existence is supreme personality and spiritual personality. Right? There's no difference between his mind, his intelligence, and his personality. That's the point. So, whereas the Mayavadis discriminate and distinguish between his existence, his personality, and with Krishna's mind. They think Krishna's body is material. So, Prabhupada very nicely makes a statement. Fools rush in where angels fear to tread. That is, in the modern context, we see many so-called great scholars and politicians making different comments on the Bhagavad Gita. Unfortunately, they don't understand what is who is Krishna. They simply want to make comments. Whereas Shankara, the greatest of the impersonalists, offer his due respects to Krishna and his book, the Bhagavad Gita. Just see Shankaracharya, who is the greatest impersonalist, he's doing his wonderful meditation on Bhagavad Gita so nicely. And the modern day scholars, they become more than Shankaracharya. They're trying to comment from their own point of view, from their own angle of vision. Prabhupada says such commentaries are all demoniac. They are actually not in line with the proper understanding of the essence of Bhagavad Gita. The foolish say that we did not surrender to the personal Krishna. The atheists, they become so atheistic, demoniac, that why you have to surrender to Krishna? Because Krishna is like one of us. That is their conclusion. Right? So this is an unfortunate situation which has happened in the present day context, that not understanding Krishna's position, Krishna's personality, spiritual existence, people are misinterpreting things, misguiding people. Right? So the foolish commentators, they come with this conclusion that finally God is impersonal, God is no form. So why we have to surrender to personal Krishna? That way they start commenting. Such unenlightened people do not know that Krishna is absolute and that there is no difference between his inside and outside. This point we discussed. So Krishna's personality is absolute existence. He descends in his own self-same form. Krishna mentions this in Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter. That he comes down with his own spiritual existence all the way from spiritual world to down to the material world. That is why it's called, when that Krishna descends, that is called avatara, incarnation. He descends from spiritual world to material world in self-same form. The difference of outside and inside is all in the material world, dualistic world. Because as I told you, the example, just skin deep. What is this body? Muscles, bone, then blood, pus, urine, so many obnoxious things. Right? Now, whereas we look like, as though, so nice, so wonderful person. Just skin deep, just you go, then you see what is our actual situation. Because Krishna, it is not like that. Krishna is spiritual personality. Actually, we also have a spiritual personality, but right now the spiritual personality is covered. Because we had a desire contrary to become independent of Krishna, didn't want to serve Krishna, so Krishna has put us in this condition. Just like a prisoner, a criminal who doesn't want to follow government rules, he's put in a prison. His freedom is curtailed. right? He cannot do, he cannot act or behave like a normal citizen because he's within the jail. Likewise, this body is a prison for us. And this body is conditioning us in a different way to go on suffering in the material world. Until unless we realize this aspect and come out of this bodily concept of life, we will be imprisoned like this. That is the whole purport of Bhagavad Gita. So this duality of body is different, soul is different, is for us. For Krishna, it is not so. That's what Prabhupada is saying to tell us here. In absolute world, there is no such difference because in absolute, everything is spiritual. Satchidananda and Narayana or Krishna belong to the absolute world. Right? This is the point. Right? Krishna and his existence in absolute world is completely spiritual. This material world is actually an imitation of absolute world. Imitation has no existence. Shankaracharya says in his dhyana, Sarvopanishado gavo dogdha gopalandanaha partho vatsaha sudhir bhokta dugdham gitamritam mahat. He says, the Upanishads are like a herd of cows. Lord Krishna, son of a cowherd, is their milker. Arjuna is the calf. The supreme nectar of the Gita is the milk. And the wise man of purified intellect is the drinker. So nicely, Shankaracharya is telling that the complete Vedic literatures, Upanishads, are like cows. And Krishna is the milker, the cowherd, right? And Arjuna is that calf who is drinking the supreme nectar of Gita from him. Yes, see. Because from Krishna, he is milking the cow of Vedic literatures and giving Bhagavad Gita. And Arjuna is hearing and drinking that nectar. And anybody who hears Bhagavad Gita in this way, the wise man of purified intellect, is the drinker. Sri Krishna says towards the end of the Bhagavad Gita that Bhagavad Gita reading is as good as worshipping Krishna by your intelligence. Right? So when you hear Bhagavad Gita, we are drinking actually the nectar of the wonderful message what Krishna has given. Prabhupada explains, unless one understands the spiritual variegatedness, one cannot understand the transcendental pastimes of Krishna. We have to understand one important aspect Prabhupada is revealing here is that material world is variegated. Material world is actually a reflection of spiritual world. So the impersonalists say, material world is variegated, it is all Maya. Maya means actually it has no existence. Finally, everything is formless, no variegatedness, nirvishesha. The information we get from Bhagavad Gita is that spiritual world is variegated. It is having full of variety because that is the reality. Just like when you have, when a tree is standing on the bank of the river, bank of the lake, the reflection of the tree is also having the same features of what tree is standing on the land. So this material world is a reflection of spiritual world. It's a perverted reflection, upside down. Right? And reflection in one sense is only because we wanted to imitate Krishna, we wanted to be like Krishna. So Krishna has provided a facility for us to imitate, go on imitating. So spiritual world has varieties. It is not formless or it is without varieties. No, that is not the conception. So unless Prabhupada says very clearly in this particular slide, unless one understands the spiritual variegatedness, one cannot understand the transcendental pastimes of Krishna. So Krishna is existing, Krishna descends, and he has so many wonderful Leela, people cannot understand unless we understand this spiritual variegatedness. So the Mayavadis say there is no variegatedness in spiritual realm. It's all one impersonal light. So in the Brahma Samhita, Lord Brahma it is said that Krishna's name, form, quality, pastimes, entourage, and paraphernalia are all Ananda Chinmaya Rasa. Again, confirming the point that everything in spiritual world is Satchidananda. It's called Ananda Chinmaya Rasa. In short, everything of his transcendental association is of the same composition of spiritual bliss, knowledge, and eternity. Anything of Krishna, his form, his name, when you chant Hare Krishna, actually we are associating with spiritual existence. We are associating with Krishna directly. When we are understanding this wonderful aspect of Bhagavad Gita, we are associating with spiritual existence. That's the point. There is no need, there is no end to his name, form, etc. Unlike in the material world, where all things have their end. In the material world, everything is having limitations. Spiritual world, everything is unlimited, limitless. It is. That's the point. So, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, only fools deride him, whereas it is Shankara, the greatest impersonalist, who worships him, his cows and his pastimes as the son of Vasudeva and the pleasure of Devaki. Right? This is what Shankaracharya is wonderfully glorifying. We will continue our discussion further in our next session and complete the dhyana of Shankaracharya. Another 5 more verses are there. We'll try to understand in the next session. So I will conclude here. Anybody has anything to ask or discuss, comment, I request them.
Prabhuji,
Yes.
I have pondered over this statement, Maya is mithya. And I tend to believe this statement is true. You know, say worldly thing physically exist, but we say Maya is mithya is true when we see the happiness, what happiness worldly things give and what happiness spiritual things give. So in terms of worldly things, happiness is temporary and limited. Whereas in case of, and we can say this is mithya. Whatever happiness we are driving out of worldly things, beings and situations, it is short-lived and is mithya.
Yes.
Whereas spiritual thing is, happiness is eternal. So that is how I tend to believe that
correct. Your understanding is correct.
Maya is mithya.
Yeah. Maya means what? Maya basically meaning of word Maya is Ma means not. Yeah. That which is not.
Yeah.
That which is not fact. Illusory. See, material world is a fact. It is not.
Yeah, that's it. It's physically there.
It's not illusion. But the way we read the material world. Okay, just like one person is imagining or thinking, concocting that drinking alcohol is very happy, gives me happiness. This is mithya. This is false.
This is mithya.
Experience of something which is actually not a fact, that is mithya.
That is mithya. Yes.
That we have got a lot of wrong perceptions, false perceptions in our mind. That's what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Give up all these concoctions from your mind. We think drinking wine, eating meat, and enjoying life like this is happiness. That is mithya. That we are
otherwise, you know, we used to think Maya is like mirage. You know, and the confusion used to be between physical. When we see, we can see things physically. How can it be mirage?
Yes, it is not mirage. It is mirage in our mind. That's the point. Our experience
only
in
happiness.
Our mind, what we do, what we create. See, when you see other person, you should see him factually. Okay, he is a person having a body imprisoned like me. He is a spirit soul actually. If you see in that way, it is okay. But if you see the other person to exploit him for your enjoyment in a way you think is, or you concocted, your manufactured idea, that is mithya. That is wrong. That's what we have done here. First of all, I am in an illusion, thinking that I am this body. And you're thinking everybody else is bodies. And I'm interacting and everybody thinks in the same way. So we are all in a Maya.
Very true.
Very true. Working. That's the point. That is the actual understanding which Bhagavad Gita Bhagavatam gives. Okay,
Right.
wonderful revelation. Thank you for that wonderful understanding.
Thank you.
Okay. So let us close now. We'll continue our discussions in the next session and complete this wonderful topic. Okay.